Guten Tag, bonjour, bienvenue, what other weird languages I know how to say hi in, and that's literally it. How are we doing, everybody? It is Saturday night. It is DFS Chalk Talk. We are ready to cash you guys in. If you read the intro this time, it says, if you're ready to get that Scrooge McDuck silo money so you can go dive and go swimming in that stuff, this is the show you need to be watching. But Joe and I will be back here to talk about it in 30 seconds. As always, man, I'm addicted to that intro. Love that stuff every time we see it. I'm very excited. It's week 7 on my left. We got my man, Joe. Joe, how we doing this evening?
Ready to rock. Week 7. Feel like I got some 3-3 teams that could use a win this week. I feel like I got a 2-4 team that I'm telling myself is in a must-win scenario. And if I'm at the top, I want to stay at the top too. So it's a big week. Feel like we got some guys coming back from injury. Another London game, right? We got another 10:30 game tomorrow morning, 9:30 game tomorrow morning. So we're in the thick of it.
Yeah, we love it. Definitely. And make sure you're following us at Triple Play Fantasy. Get on there, like, subscribe, hit that bell. Make sure you guys are here in about 8 hours from now when we do the Blitz. If you're just finding us now and you're maybe one of those 3-3 teams, maybe you're even a 1-5 or even an 0-6 team, it's not too late to turn it around. We can still make the playoffs as a 7-6 team, man. It can still happen. And those are the teams that I swear, those are the ones that win championships way more than the 13-0 teams that make it all the way in there. Like
times 2 with the Giants, 2 shitty teams.
Yep, exactly. Yep. Nope. It happens more often than it doesn't. So you definitely want to, if you, like I said, if you're ready to turn that thing around, get on tomorrow. We'll help you with that start sit. We'll help you get that lineup going. Joe, why don't you go ahead and lead us off with some injuries here? What do we got on the injury report tomorrow?
Yes, I will. I feel like we're healing up as a quarterback unit this week. The quarterback injuries are really Anthony Richardson's back, which I think from a fantasy perspective, that's pretty bad news. Joe Flacco was ripping it up. I could go for a few more weeks of that. I don't know how many casual football conversations I've started with Joe Flacco and Sam Darnold this week, and I don't think anybody's ever been able to say that before, even when those guys were in their prime years ago. So the quarterback position's been quite the Rubik's Cube, but we are at least healthy at this point, so that is a win. From the running back perspective, we can't necessarily say the same thing. Jonathan Taylor's going to miss another game, so you've got that tandem of Sermon and Goodson, I believe. That sounds like a law firm there in Indianapolis. Looks like Kenneth Walker has just been added as questionable, but I think he will play. We know that Isaiah Pacheco's still out. Aaron Jones not looking good for Minnesota, not official yet. But they just traded for Cam Akers, right? So this would be – did he play for them last week too or no, Mikey?
He did not. Nope.
He did not. So this will be his first game as a Viking. Brian, I think the biggest running back thing we're waiting on tomorrow is for those Commanders. Brian Robinson Jr. Looking like a true game time decision. He was last week. He played, and he just had one of those lines like, what the hell do you do with this? 7 rushes, 18 yards, but he scored 2 touchdowns. So, if he doesn't play tomorrow, they're home against Carolina. That's a juicy running game matchup. Austin Eckler will, so be on the lookout on Brian Robinson. And here's a very, very pleasant welcome piece of news from the running back crew here. Nick Chubb is questionable to make his season debut for Cleveland tomorrow. Now, if he could actually throw the ball and be their quarterback, maybe Cleveland fans would be excited, I should say, because that's really what they need. But it would be great to see Nick Chubb back, no doubt about it. And Jerome Ford happens to be out tomorrow, so that would work timing-wise. It's not too bad from a running back perspective either this week. And then looking at wide receiver, good news, Cooper Kupp might finally get back on the field. He's questionable, game time decision, but he hasn't played since week 2. So it would be nice to see the Rams get some of their weapons back. Nico Collins, we know he's on IR. Tank Dell resurrected his season last week. And, Mikey, here's a fun DraftKings one for all our DFS nerds that are out there. On DraftKings, if you look at the main slate, Devonta Adams is available for 7,100. He shows out, and the Jet game's not even in the main slate. So I don't know what the answer to that riddle will be in the morning. But I would play him in the main slate if he's available. I've got a feeling they're going to hit the ground running as a tandem. Let's see. Deontay Johnson, he's questionable for Carolina. And, it's pretty. Michael Pittman, questionable, will play, it looks like. Jacoby Myers, doubtful. So $20 for anybody who can name the second wide receiver for the Raiders at this point after Trey Tucker. But Dontavian Wicks is questionable, and we will leave it at that.
I thought Trey Tucker was the answer to that question.
Is he the one?
Lost. Yeah, yep, he's now the one. Jeez.
He is the one.
Wow, that's like it's like management shifts right there. I had to point out, or I had to look it up really quick because he said this will be his first snap as a Minnesota Viking, which is false.
You're right.
Cam Akers was a Minnesota Viking. He did get 48 snaps with them. Got about what did I see right there? According to Pro Football Focus here, we're japping them up for the look right there. It's 138 and a touchdown. So 38 attempts, 138 and a touchdown. So he's been there. He might just fit right in. It's going to be curious to see. This is the matchup I want to see Minnesota win. Minnesota can beat Detroit. They are the real deal, but I just don't think that they can. I think that Detroit wins this game. Not by a hefty margin. I think it's going to be a great football game, but I think that Detroit pulls it off.
Quick moment of silence there for Aiden Hutchinson last week. That freaking sucks. That poor guy. He was tearing it up all season long, and just you hate to see that.
He is such a difference maker in that team, and just such a difference maker on that defense. So hopefully they can play inspired enough to get them going where they need to go. I don't really think it's the offense you have to worry about when you play Minnesota. I think it's definitely that defense that'll eat you alive. And so, like I said, I'm not too worried about that. I think Detroit will still be able to pull it off. They've got so many weapons on offense. It's insane. But yeah, that's a key loss on defense. It doesn't really get much more than that. We're going to go ahead and get this thing started, man. DFS, we do DFS Chalk Talk. We go and let you know what our lineups are going to be, who we pay up for, and what the method and direction that we have. And so I'll just go ahead and kick mine off right here. We'll go ahead and get it started out. Starting at the quarterback spot, we've got Jaden Daniels. The guy's been lights out. They're playing Carolina at home this week. 9,100, very expensive. I remember when he was for $7, and we were telling you to grab him because it'll never be any cheaper than this. And here we go, right? So we got Jaden Daniels at home, 9,100, well worth it, I think. Saquon Barkley, we were talking about this offline all week this week, me and Joe and Jeff, and we're talking about this being a revenge game where he's going to show up, show out, and I think this is going to be huge. Jaylen Warren's coming back. I don't really like the opportunity there, but for 5,600, and if we can go ahead and take a look there at maybe replacement players, but we got the stack up with Terry McLaurin. We've got him going up there next. Oh, my fast computer is just lovely. So we're going to go ahead and take a look here at Jaylen Warren real fast. Coming back from injury, Najee Harris hasn't looked great. He looked a lot better last week, but I think this week's going to be a completely different story. Let's see here. Where's he sitting at? 50.
Go to running back real quick. You're not on running back.
There you go.
Because I'm curious to see. Because 56 is good value on FanDuel. What else is there for you? I mean, Jeremy McNichols, I guess, if Brian Robinson was out. How do you feel about McNichols?
I do like McNichols if Brian Robinson was out, but it looks like Brian Robinson is trending to play, and then Austin Eckler. So this guy will still be playing third fiddle. I think he's very touchdown dependent. That's why I avoided him. It looked like Ray Davis wasn't going to be able to play with that calf injury. Looking around there, I just didn't really have too much excitement about the rest of these guys here. Zach Charbonnet was a guy I was kind of considering. And actually, you know what? We're going to move it on over to Zach Charbonnet right now.
I'll tell you something about Jaylen Warren. Once he gets healthy, we have such short-term memories here in the fantasy football community. But Jaylen Warren was passing the eye test with flying colors almost every week last year. I just don't think he's been like 100% at all this year so far. Yeah. But once he is worth having on the radar.
Well, they're going to be working with the quarterback tandem tomorrow. I really don't want a whole lot to do with that Steelers offense just because Russell Wilson should be coming back. But Zach Charbonnet, it looks like Kenneth Walker has been downgraded to questionable, even doubtful tomorrow. So Zach Charbonnet should get a pretty healthy workload against Atlanta, especially if they get a lead quick. So we got Terry McLaurin coming in next. We got Tim Patrick. Tim Patrick has always been one of my favorite receivers, and it sucks because he was always a guy that was on the Broncos, man. And so for 2 straight years with the Broncos, the darn guy, he got hurt both years, both in preseason, both season ending IR. He goes over to Detroit. He's starting to kind of make a name for himself as the 3rd wide receiver on that team. He scored a touchdown last week. He's seeing a little more targets. And again, 4,800. We got to pay down because we paid so much for Jaden Daniels. We also paid up for Saquon Barkley. We also paid up a little bit for Terry McLaurin. This was kind of a wild lineup that I was able to get the names I was able to get. Xavier Legette at Washington. Carolina's not looking good, but Andy Dalton seems to be at least finding touchdowns. Washington defense has been giving up at least a couple a game. So we're going to go ahead and go that way, and hopefully Legette gets in there. Kyle Pitts looking better every single week. I do like that Seattle-Atlanta matchup. I do think there should be some sparks there, so I got a couple pieces of that in there. Kyle Pitts did look better last week. He still hasn't got that touchdown, at least a touchdown with a lot of catches. He got a game with a touchdown, but no catches. And then he's had a couple of games with a few catches and some yards. But I think this is going to be the game where he puts it together. And then we have Malik Neighbors back from concussion. I think that's going to be a big, high-scoring game that they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. And I think Malik Neighbors is going to be a big part of that. Not coming back from a hamstring, not coming back from a calf, not coming back from a high ankle. He's coming back from a concussion. So we can at least have a little bit of confidence with the fact that he probably isn't going to work. We're not have to really worry about re-agitation of the injury. And then Colts at home against Miami. Until Miami gets themselves a quarterback over there, I'm really not too worried about it. The Colts have actually been looking pretty decent on defense, and I think they can score. So what do you think, Joe? Go ahead and rip her apart.
Yeah, no, there's been no ripping this year. It's been a lot of applauding, and some people might call that boring, but I call it a nice way to win some money every week. I will continue with you on that Jaden Daniels train. I mean, what is that? My eyes are failing me. What's that price now? 9,100?
9,100, man. Yeah.
9,000. We got it 6 weeks until it did. So, I mean, you got to do it. It's a great play from a matchup perspective. You can't argue with what this guy's doing. And if for the first few weeks of the season, you talked about him not throwing a lot, we can throw that out the window. He's made McLaurin a number 1 again from a wide receiver perspective over the last few weeks. Got to love it. Got to play Barkley. I don't understand how, and I am a Giant fan who just could throw up over this whole situation with Barkley. But everything we now know about Nick Sirianni, the personality of that Philadelphia team, the desperation in which they're playing with, all of these things, Barkley's going to have his opportunities, a lot of them. These games between the Giants and Philly over the last few years have been crazy. They've been high scoring. They've been unpredictable. There's been a shit ton of weird plays. I actually even considered Daniel Jones today with Neighbors back, but then I felt like I could be safer than that from a quarterback perspective. But I think that is going to be a high scoring fantasy game in general. I like Charbonnet, especially. Obviously if Walker's not playing, but even with Walker playing, I have a hard time believing that Seattle's going to just line up, in conservative sets all day and run the ball at Atlanta. So I think Charbonnet is going to have his chances, especially through the air. I don't know a lot about Patrick, but in watching him play third fiddle to Sutton and Judy those last couple of years, I was always impressed with him. And I always felt like they went to him a lot on like third down and everything. Everything you said, I feel like I've seen it, the little I've seen him over the last couple of years. And now he's finally on a team where it can translate into production. 4,800 on FanDuel. That's an absolute steal, even if he just got you those 7 points that he's averaged the last 2 weeks. Neighbors is the new Jaden Daniels. I think safe to say, as long as he's under 9,000, he's pretty much looking like a bargain every week. You certainly have him under 9,000 this week. Again, it's going to be a high scoring game. This guy is just super fun to watch. Pumped for the Giants from that perspective for sure. Cannot argue with taking the team playing Miami defensively. Real funny thing on Miami, if you really think about it over the last 5 years, like, keep me honest, Mikey, what was Tyson Bagent for the Bears a few years ago? Joe Flacco, Sam Darnold, Mr. Cutlets himself. What I'm saying is you've had a lot of shitty, no-name, second, third round, or third string, undrafted quarterbacks come in and actually play a couple of decent NFL games with nobody else talent-wise on their team. Yet Miami, with Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and two very good running backs, cannot move the ball. I mean, Tua's got to be the MVP of the league based on what they are without him. In this day and age, it's surprising to see them be this futile offensively with those weapons.
Yeah, it seems like those are a couple of guys there that you just got to throw the ball, kind of got to get it close, and that's good enough, right? And I mean, like the metric that they used to relate that to is DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins has like a 15-yard catch radius, which a whole lot of people that might not know what that catch radius is. That means if you throw the ball within 15 yards of him, he has a high percentage chance of catching that, which is insane. The closest one that I can think of to him is like six yards, and that's Deontay Johnson. And that's still incredible by comparison to a lot of the other guys. But DeAndre Hopkins he's a Hall of Famer for a reason. So the guy's solid. Why don't you go ahead and give us that DraftKings lineup there, Joe?
Yes, sir. Let's do it, my friend. All righty. So main slate DraftKings. And I have been pounding Jalen Daniels all year long. I've got him in 3 out of my 4 leagues, thankfully. This week, we are going to play Jordan Love at 6,900. You got to sit back and think about this Packer team a little bit and look at the numbers to see what type of passing attack this team has become. You're talking about 4 relevant fantasy wide receivers when they're all healthy, and obviously Jordan Love. Heard a funny line about him the other day. He's never seen a pass he doesn't like. He's going to throw you some picks. He's going to make some bad throws. But from a fantasy perspective, this guy airs it out. They're playing Houston. Could be a high-scoring game. So I feel like 6,900 is a nice price for Jordan Love. We talked about Barkley. Can't not do it. I really like Kyren Williams also for the Rams this week from, the top of the running back perspective. But got to go Barkley. This other one, so you knew Hunt was going to come in, and you knew that the Chiefs would feed him a little bit just from the perspective of they're desperate and he knows the offense. But 27 carries last week against New Orleans in his second game in however long, and another catch. So 117 yards and a touchdown. They're just running out of bodies there in Kansas City. So for 6,000, that San Francisco defense isn't statistically what it's been in the past. I like Hunt to give you 15 plus again. We talked about Neighbors. He's at the top of my wide receiver list. There's just not much else to say about it. I mean, I like Jamar Chase this week again, but you're saving, I think, around $1,000 on 900, I think, on DraftKings going Neighbors. These last 3 games have just been absolutely insane. And, I mean, for you mathematicians out there, that's 45 targets the last 3 weeks. That's incredible, and I don't see that changing against Philadelphia. We talked about Jaden Daniels, which means now, and this took a few weeks because even Daniels looked good at the beginning of the season. It didn't translate for McLaurin, but now it has. We're talking about 4 legit games for McLaurin in a row, 4 touchdowns within those 4 games. The one game he didn't score, he went for over 100 yards, 6,800. Love that price. And then another one, again, I'm old-fashioned. Until you tell me the Chiefs aren't going to do it, I'm going to go with Chiefs guys. And I know that Schuster is questionable, but he looks like he's going to play. This is even a bigger head-scratcher than Hunt because you watch Schuster play, and he looks like a 5th-string wide receiver. Yet, and we know how good Mahomes is, and I mean, 7 for 130 last week. Do I believe he'll do that again this week? No. However, in a game where they might have to throw, maybe they go down early, he's going to be very relevant for them again. So 4,000 on DraftKings, you're pretty much not getting cheaper for a running back or a wideout than that. So I'm loving that play. And then my man, Grant, I don't even know if this guy's Italian or not, but we're going to act like he is because that's about as Italian of a last name as you're going to get in the NFL. Grant Calcaterra, third cousins to my boy Tommy Cutlets over here. No Goddard this week. So coming in at 3,200, and he went 4 for 67 last week on 4 targets. Honestly, for whatever I just said, 2,700 or 3,200. If he could do half of that, and that's a win. So I'm going to play the injury game there for the Eagles. And come on now, he's back. Not only is he back, he's pretty much the number one option now in Cleveland since they've traded Amari Cooper. David Njoku, 4,100. And I'm flexing him. And I know it's crazy to flex a tight end. Yes, it is. But we're getting Neighbors. We're getting McLaurin. We're getting Barkley. We're getting Jordan Love in the lineup. And the bottom line is he's going to lead the team in targets. He went 5 for 31 on 7 targets last week. I expect him to get even more looks this week. So a little out of the box. I feel pretty good about it, to be completely honest. And we're going to cap things off with the Ram defense, which was even surprised to see they had 10 last week against Green Bay. I actually thought that was pretty good. They're home against Vegas, who, I mean, is just, I think it's safe to say that Vegas is, as much as Antonio Pierce is a dog, and they got some guys on defense, Crosby, who is a dog. It looks like the Vegas Raiders are the first official team that are headed towards that number 1 pick race for next year.
They really are. They have not looked like the same team that they did at least the end of the season last year. It seemed like they were actually starting to kind of get it put together there for just a real quick minute. But then this year, I heard a lot of reports saying there's a lot of infighting going on there. I heard that Crosby actually went off on a few people, and I heard it's a really bad locker room right now. I mean, like you said, name their second receiver. It's Tyreek McAllister, and it's pretty crazy how shallow they are at wide receiver. I'm looking at their depth chart right now. They have DJ Turner, Trey Tucker, Tyreek McAllister, and Jacoby Myers.
Oh,
and that's it.
And Myers is hurt.
But that is the entirety of their entire depth at wide receiver right now. So if they have a receiver get hurt at this point in time, they are going to have to start dipping into running backs.
In leagues, and I know we're DFS here, but it's funny because in leagues, you see your drafts, and if it's like a lesser experienced player, maybe owner, or, some people just feel like I got to get a defense. I've got everything else. Let me go get a defense next. This is why you don't choose a defense until the last round of a draft every year, because you didn't know Vegas would be this bad, which in week 7 would make the Rams a phenomenal defensive play. You don't have to use any draft capital. What we're saying is week 7, rest of the year, you're playing matchups defensively for the rest of the, you're playing, you're looking for the bad offense more than the good defense.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and if you follow me at all, you know that I also do a show on Fantasy and Friends where I talk waivers. And 2 weeks ago, I was really, really high on Kareem Hunt. This week, as a matter of fact, I was really high on Juju Smith-Schuster. And it's crazy to be there, but without Rashee Rice, Juju Smith-Schuster seemed to be the guy that caught. It looked like he caught the benefits of that. Travis Kelce's getting a lot more looks and a lot more targets as well out of that ordeal. But Xavier Worthy seems to be kind of in the same spot he was at, right? Where he's just running and gunning the ball. So I really like Kareem Hunt this week. I think he's going to be nice and productive. Juju Smith-Schuster also. I run plenty of lineups with 2 Chiefs on there for a reason. Same reason why I'll run 2 lineups with the 2 Dolphins on it usually if 2 is out there. And to your credit, that's a good statement about them. Like, it's crazy that
Uh-oh, we lost you, Mikey. We lost you. I can't hear Mikey. I don't know. Is it me? So I'm gonna go with I can't hear Mikey and nobody else can. Although maybe it's nobody can hear me. But just real quick, Mike, you up? Can you hear me, Mike? Okay. So, a couple of honorable mentions that I didn't get in this lineup, but I thought were worth talking about is I was frustrated I couldn't get Tank Dell in. Obviously with Diggs out, playing for Houston, but no Nico Collins. Dell had his first good game last week. He was 6,500 on DraftKings. Definitely an honorable mention. Definitely somebody I would consider getting in there if you can fit him in. You know, and again, too, I would say at the running back position, Kyron Williams is leveraged to have a huge week. And I also like James Cook coming back from injury. I'm not sure how onboarded Amari Cooper will be, but that's another one too, 5,800. And if we get Mikey back, Mikey, I got to ask you what you
When
think
did I drop out?
about 90 seconds ago.
But what was I saying when I did? Was I able to say the only thing I don't like about your pick is David Njoku because I don't like
No,
I don't care about the number one target on Cleveland, right? That's all I was going to say about your lineup. Like the number one target on Cleveland is like the number one, I don't know, sushi you can buy at Walmart, you know, like, yay, like, yep, it's still sushi, but it's Walmart sushi. So I don't know, like that would be the one I would argue with, but I understand, man, when you gotta have a gap like you do, at least you do have the first target, the first look on a team that is probably going to have to pass the ball a lot. So if Deshaun Watson can get at least 50% of those targets there, and Njoku should have a pretty decent game. But my God, that team looks like a dumpster fire right now.
What do you think, real quick, just in case give me a minute or two as a Bills fan on Amari Cooper acquisition?
Man, I think that's going to be awesome. You know, but the thing you know how I feel about Amari Cooper. He's a guy that's really good this week and really bad next week, and then really bad the week after that, then really good again. So I think he's going to fill that role. I think he's going to be exactly like how Amari Cooper at least used to be. I have a feeling he's going to be another guy that starts off hot. I think him and Devontae Adams, both in their new homes, are going to do really well. They're going to flourish very fast. But Amari Cooper is going to be a guy that I'm going to say next week, probably not so high on. Whereas Devontae Adams, man, I have a feeling Rodgers has missed throwing to him for so many years that he is just going to get it out of his system. And I bet you Devontae Adams sees 15 to 20 targets tomorrow.
And it's a must win for them too. So, I mean, yeah, they've got to leave it all out there for sure.
Yep, they love to put on a clinic between the two of those guys, definitely, and I don't see them having too many issues doing that again. They have a tougher matchup. All their matchups are pretty tough. They've got really tough defenses down this lane, but they ought to be able to win.
The Bills' schedule has been insane lately. I saw it in totality the other day. Holy shit!
Yeah, boy, that's another team that's really firing off on all cylinders, and I think that adding Amari Cooper is going to be a big add there. Like Amari Cooper's just a guy that generally seems to be a guy that helps out the locker room, helps lift up his teammates. He's a general good presence to have around and things like that. I really do like Amari Cooper on the Bills. I think he'll be able to give a lot of veteran leadership to like Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid. I think that they'll benefit a lot from that.
Good sneaky move to slip in there and get him. Last question. I know we got to wrap it up, but I was curious what you think. One more. So Stephon Diggs started off a little slow in his Houston career. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't necessarily Stephon Diggs type production. Now without Nico for a few weeks, he got in the end zone last week. Do you think we're going to see number one wideout from Stephon Diggs now, or do you think him and Tank Dell are going to kind of switch off for these next few weeks?
You know, it's funny. You're going to make me eat my words from the beginning of the season. How much I hated seeing Diggs on a team and how much I think he's a terrible presence in a locker room and all kinds of stuff. But, he's actually really been looking good over there in Houston. I haven't seen anything about him being kind of his awful self where he's begging for the ball. It seems like he's getting a lot of targets. Which he should. The guy's a very talented receiver. The problem with him is that he's got a mouth on him and it needs constantly fed or else he cries about it. So I haven't seen that with him. I do see Diggs having a pretty dang good game, but I do like Tank Dell more in this lineup, more in this situation, because I feel like Diggs is always going to be the guy that draws that one coverage, even with Nico Collins out there. I think Diggs is still a guy that you're going to have to focus on with double coverage, because if you don't, he's going to burn you every time.
Yeah, I was hoping Dell was a little cheaper this week because I felt like he would have been a good play at the right price, but I didn't love him for 6,500 on DraftKings. That's like 7,200 on FanDuel.
He was 7 on FanDuel. He was exactly 7, just because I accidentally picked him on one of my things when I was going through. You know how when you're like scrolling and you pick a guy on accident and he's like, oh my God, I'm like, oh well, like, but I was like, well, that might be a happy accident. Let's go ahead and keep right through there and everything. But yeah, I couldn't get him to fit in the lineup with the other guys that I wanted to have there. So,
all right, my friend.
Well, do you have anything to add before we go ahead and close this thing out there, Joe?
I'll be ready. 13 and a half hours, the blitz. We got some game time decisions that are going to be relevant, and it's going to be a big day tomorrow. Last week, the first hour of the day on Sunday, I felt like eclipsed like one of the lower scoring weeks for scoring right off the bat. And I've got a feeling that tomorrow's going to be rip roaring offensive day in the NFL.
I hope so. It's kind of funny. I saw so many analysts at the very beginning of the season saying, I'm done. I'm hanging it up. I quit. Like, this just isn't worth it anymore. And I've been there so many times. It's so frustrating when everything you can see just right there in front of you, it has to lay out this way. It has to, nothing was working out like nothing was. Everybody was being wrong. Oddly enough, I have to point this out, and I'm not using this as a brag. We weren't. We were right every week. We've cashed every week for you. We have a different insight on football, though, like and things like that. But I saw a lot of analysts giving it up. But my goodness, that was really nice last week. And what dicks, Jeff, we miss you, man. Jeff wasn't here this week. Jeff is out with his family. Jeff will be back next week. He won't be here for the Blitz tomorrow either. But hopefully you are. Hopefully you're here to join Joe and I. We're going to be ready to give you guys all that start sit information that you're going to need, get you everything you need to go to win these championships. For Joe and myself, guys, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Let's cash that up again. I want to see your Scrooge McDuck silos when you guys have those. Send up some screenshots at Triple Play Fantasy. Make sure you're following, liking, subscribing, and we will see you guys in the morning. Thank you so much.